comic book people of the world, it is Wednesday, that means it's comic book day, but there's really only one book that I want to talk about this week, and that happens to be Powers of 10, although some people are calling it Powers of X. Still though, this first issue has come out, and damn, it was a big one. Writer Jonathan Hickman has really put the X-Men back in the main focus in the Marvel Universe. This series is a sister series to the House of X series that's going on. This is giving a bit more of an explanation as to what's happened to the mutants in the Marvel Universe, and what's going to be happening in their futures. First of all, the whole title of the Powers of 10 is put into play at the very beginning. We have different stories taking place at different points in the timeline. The first one starting with Xavier first coming up with the whole idea of the X-Men, which is like ground zero, so it's X to the 0 power. And then 10 years later, which takes place in the present day, is supposed to be X1. We're given X2, which takes place 100 years in the future, and humans and mutants are at war with each other. And finally, we're given X to the 3rd power, which takes place 1,000 years in the future, and humanity has been defeated. This first issue does jump from time frame to time frame, and it is a bit confusing. We start out with Xavier meeting Moira McTaggart for the first time, or at least supposedly for the first time, and when he came up with the idea of the X-Men. Moira does seem to have a secret, and he asks Xavier to read her mind, which the reader does not see what it is he reads, but apparently it is something that shocks him. When we jump 10 years into the future, which is supposed to be the present day, this ties into the House of X story that came out last week. Xavier's a bit more on the dark side, and he did sanction Mystique and her team to break into a facility for some blueprints. Little side note, Xavier uses telekinesis to take the file from Mystique, which is something I've never seen him do in the main Marvel Universe. I know he was capable of doing that in the Ultimate Universe, but that's something new. Jump forward to 100 years in the future, and we see the major war that's taken place between humanity and mutants. We're introduced to a couple new characters, which I think right off the bat are awesome. One of which happens to be Rasputin, who has a combination of different powers thanks to Mr. Sinister. We see that the vast majority of mutants no longer actually live on Earth anymore. Like the House of X comic book, we have pages that are giving descriptions as to what's happened in this timeline. For instance, we find out that Mr. Sinister was making these chimera mutants where they had these combination of powers like Rasputin. We're shown the remaining few mutants that are on Earth, some of which look very familiar. I'm not really sure if it's supposed to be Wolverine, Magneto, Zorn, and I'm assuming that's not really Groot. Maybe that's Krakoa. Maybe that's an embodiment of Krakoa. I'm not really quite sure. But still, 100 years in the future, that would be really tough for like a couple of those characters to still be alive. But it probably is them because, I don't know, future of medical advances and stuff like that, keeping people alive. But what's interesting is the next time jump, which is, of course, 1,000 years in the future, when we're shown the character of the librarian. Humans definitely do not have a nice future waiting for them. But that's it for this first issue. It raised a lot of questions, but it is still nice to see that it's intersecting with its sister series. And Hickman is really throwing everyone for a loop as to what he's going to be doing with this series. Is Xavier being controlled? Is it even Xavier? Is there some mutant cloning thing taking place? Is Mr. Sinister kind of pulling the strings? Or maybe there's something else going on to the side we're not really aware of yet? I'm sure more and more answers are going to be given to us as the series unfolds, but it does have me really interested as to what's going to be happening. I mean, I know that Xavier has never been 100% positive or honest with everything, but this seems to be the most sinister version of him that we've seen that's in the main Marvel Universe. But anyways, I've been talking way too much about this. Did you read this issue? Leave comments down below and let me know what you thought about it. With that, thank you guys for joining me in this video. Be sure to check out my Patreon site, check out my social media sites, my websites, and everything else out there. Peace, love, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.
I'm in love with a hero.
Death's Head issue number 1 also came out this week, which happens to have Wiccan and Hulkling in it, and I love these guys, so I may read it just because they're a part of it.